Fellow Falcoholics, what is up? Welcome to the Falcoholic Live's Falcons at Vikings post-game special. I'm, of course, your host, Kevin Knight, and I will be joined by my co-host, Mr. Adnan Ikic, at some point. I got the show started pretty quick, so Adnan may not have had time to jump in before we got going today. I timed it pretty well, nailed it. But what certainly was not nailed was the Falcons' performance against the Vikings. It was just flat out awful. So let's get into that. If you guys have questions or anything like that, throw those in. If you want to vent, that's cool. I'm going to do some of that for sure. I do appreciate all of the mega hot takes from King T'Challa, by Quinn, by Matt Ryan, time for a change. I do appreciate your hot takes. Week one just wouldn't be the same without those, crazy, ridiculous opening week takes. So I appreciate you throwing those out in the chat. But yeah, let me put this out there first. Like, no one's getting fired after week one. Okay, just so you guys know. But it was really bad. You can't really get around that aspect of it. Matt Ryan did not have a good game. The offensive line did not have a good game. The defense, I don't think, had as bad a game as it may appear based on the score, but they definitely didn't have a good game either. So to me, the biggest issue for the team was the turnovers, right? So as you guys might have noticed if you were watching the game, the first drive ended with a blocked punt. So that's not good. The second drive ended with an interception, also not good. Then they had another drive, and a promising looking drive actually, and with a Devonta Freeman fumble, which is of course the worst. And then another drive later ended with another interception. So that's four total turnovers. You are never going to win a single football game if you are -4 in turnover margin. That's basically the truth of any football game. If you can win a game -1, you can even win -2. -4, you ain't winning shit. So, the turnovers just sunk this team's chances of doing anything from the very beginning. There was no way they were going to dig themselves out of 3 turnovers. One possible way maybe could have been if they were able to fall on the 3 fumbles that they caused on defense. The defensive line did create 3 fumbles, but did not acquire any of those fumbles. So, that just makes it even worse for them. But yeah, if you're watching the game, obviously the offensive line didn't play great. I think those of us that have followed this really closely could kind of guess that maybe the offensive line would struggle in this game. And I don't think that it's terribly, important for this team to really win this game. But with the offensive line the way it is, first of all, they were starting the 2 rookies, and it was a completely new group. Then Chris Lindstrom went out. They were shuffling right tackle the whole game for God knows what reason. It's not like Sombrello was playing that much better than Caleb McGarry. Jake Matthews had a rough game, but he struggles against Everson Griffin. Everson Griffin seems to have his number. He's historically had really rough games against Griffin. So, if you thought that the Falcons were going to struggle in this game based on the offensive line matchup, you were absolutely right, and they did. And welcome to Adnan. How are you doing today, Adnan?
I am doing not so good anymore.
Just terrible now. I was hyped, and now I've been thoroughly destroyed by the Falcons. So, I was just talking about the offensive line struggles. So I'm sure you have some takes on that. So what are your thoughts there?
Oh, Jake Matthews got abused by Everson Griffin in this game. We thought that the problem would come in from right tackle and Caleb McGarry. And if Caleb McGarry has this game that Matthews just had, then it's like, okay, it's his first game, fine, whatever. But Jake Matthews thoroughly disappointed me in this game. The Falcons overall got destroyed in the trenches on both sides. Couldn't do anything in terms of the run game. Ito Smith did some nice things here and there, provided a bit of a spark. Devonta Freeman had that fumble, which just killed the game.
Yeah.
When we were down 14-0. And then on the other side, we said it beforehand, you have to just slow down Dalvin Cook. They knew that, and it's on Dan Quinn, the fact that they let the Minnesota Vikings run all over them with that awful offensive line that Minnesota has.
Yeah, and you're right about that for sure. I would say that the biggest area that the defense struggled in was stopping the run, and then The Falcons' offensive line, like I think we expected that it would be bad, but not necessarily that it would be Jake Matthews getting beat so much. And then Lindstrom went out, and that totally torpedoed the run game when Schweitzer had to come in. And then, they were switching out McGarry and Sombrilo the whole game. Didn't really make a lot of sense to me. So yeah, that unit definitely struggled. But the run defense, I think, was a much more concerning thing to me because, they made it an emphasis this offseason saying, we're going to get better against the run. We're going to bring in the personnel to do this. And some of that personnel looked like it had paid off. Tyler Davison, I thought, actually had a pretty good game. I thought when the Vikings tried to run up the middle, the Falcons were actually pretty solid at stopping that. But whenever they went to the outside, just no one was doing their assignments. Guys were crashing the middle constantly. Linebackers just run blitzing the middle. And I don't know if that's a scheme thing, like Quinn was coaching them to do that because it doesn't make any sense against an outside zone team. But it was a very puzzling performance. But I thought the defense really did settle down. Like later in the game, I'm not pinning this loss on them like at all. I think
not at all. Yeah. Not at all. They had to face a short field many times. They had to go up against a Minnesota Vikings offense, which had the emotion on their side from some terrible turnovers by Matt Ryan. His 2 interceptions were just both inexcusable, just both 100% his fault. Even the second one, I know Luke Stalker pretty much gave up on his route in the end zone, but why are you throwing a jump ball to Luke Stalker in the back of the end zone? Just throw that one away and live to play another down. It would have been third down and goal. You would have had 2 more tries. I don't know what he was trying to force there.
Yeah, I think that he was trying to throw it away and just didn't get enough air on it. And I also, I do blame Luke Stalker for quitting on that route. If he pushes that route through to the end, Harris can't just break off and go get that ball. Like, he has to pay attention to Stalker, and I think Stalker quitting on that route was a contributing factor. But yeah, I mean, Matt needed to put a little more gas on that ball to get it out of bounds. No questions asked there. But yeah, I mean, to me, the funniest thing is that the Falcons soundly outgained the Vikings in this game. I think they have over 100 yards more than the Vikings altogether on offense. And Minnesota didn't have to do anything. The Falcons gift wrapped the game and handed it to them. I mean, 2 interceptions, a fumble, and a block punt. They barely had to do anything. They did not score a single point that they didn't get off a turnover. It was their entire 28 points were scored off turnovers. Anytime the Falcons defense got on the field after a punt or a score, they did not surrender any points. The Vikings offense outside of Dalvin Cook and Madison, who actually their run game was very good, and obviously they won the game, so they didn't have to do a ton because of the Falcons' mistakes, but.
And the Vikings made their own mistakes. I think they had 3 neutral zone infractions, which just gave us first downs. But then the Falcons just could never even score on any of those drives. They just turn it over.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just they really should have been better. But those turnovers early, those 3 back-to-back turnovers, just crushed the game. There was no coming back from that. Matt Ryan actually had a solid game. If you take it, the interceptions were not good, but altogether, 2 touchdowns, 304 yards, 33 of 46. Matt Ryan had a fine game stats wise. But you just can't win football games when you're making these kinds of mistakes, and to just be down 28-0 at any point in a game when the opposing offense is not really having to do anything. I mean, that's just an embarrassment. So just all around not good. But talking about the offense, obviously Julio didn't have a fantastic game. He did get that touchdown catch late. I was actually really impressed with Ridley and Hooper in particular. I thought they both had good games. I thought they both pulled their weight for sure. What are your thoughts on some bright spots maybe on the offense from this game?
I don't know. Ridley was definitely a bright spot. Ito Smith, another guy who just went in and, something seemed to happen every time Ito Smith got the ball, something positive. I think he thoroughly outplayed Devontae Freeman in this game. It was just so infuriating when they lined up in that formation, when they were on the goal line after that pass interference, which Ridley drew. They went with the I formation. They went with almost full offensive linemen and tight ends. But you have Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley on your roster. I have no idea how you're taking Julio Jones off the field in that situation on the goal line. But I digress to Dirk Cutter and the offensive minds of this team. But definitely Ridley Mohamed Sanu, another reliable player. You know, I think he caught almost everything that came his way. Had some clutch third down conversions. Yeah, it wasn't many bright spots in this game.
Yeah, and you're right. Like the offensive line didn't really allow that much success, that much sustained success. But I thought the offense as a whole, outside of the turnovers, operated well enough that they should have been in contention for this game. But again, the turnovers. I mean, you can't come back from that. You can't come back from 4. I guess the Jets
the
did
block kick too.
Yeah, I count that as one of the turnovers personally. I guess some people don't count the block kick as a turnover, but I guess I kind of do. But yeah, I mean the Jets did lose today, winning the turnover battle 4-0. So I guess you can't say that it never happens that you can win a game, with committing 4 turnovers. But
now we're comparing ourselves to the Jets.
Yeah, and that's never a good situation to be in. On defense, I thought Isaiah Oliver just got smoked by Thielen. I have no idea why the team didn't just put Desmond Trufant on Thielen.
I don't know why they didn't double cover Thielen, to be honest. Diggs was hobbled, and BB was their other wide receiver.
Yeah, and the Vikings only attempted 8 passes, so it's not that huge of a deal. But Desmond Trufant is a better matchup for Thielen, no matter what way you slice it. Diggs is hobbled. Let Isaiah Oliver cover him and just double Thielen with Trufant and shut him down. That just was a very
He has this stubborn philosophy of a cornerback should only get one half of the field no matter what, and that's for years that's never worked for us.
No,
I remember always Robert Alford was always on guys like Mike Evans and just getting abused by the other team's best wide receiver. You can't do that unless you have 2 Pro Bowl caliber cornerbacks.
Yeah, and if you don't move your cornerback around, you allow the opposing offense to dictate the pace of the game and dictate what the matchup is. You shouldn't be doing that as a defensive coordinator. That is a legitimate criticism of Quinn. You should be the one deciding my corner is playing on this player on this play, and not being stubborn and saying, oh, well, I'm not going to do this because we are playing sides. Why the hell do you play sides? No one plays sides. Come on. That's just stupid football. Yes, this is 2019. We don't need to play that stupid-ass football anymore. You can move your players around, okay?
I mean, at the end of the day, though, Dan Quinn is going to be the one to answer for all of it.
Yep.
Because there's no more, all right, I'm going to clean house, fire all of my coordinators, and we're going through. The next person getting fired off this coaching staff, if things go wrong, will be Dan Quinn.
Yep. Oh, yeah, no doubt about it. This is Dan Quinn's year. If they're not competitive, if they're not in contention for the playoffs, at least, I don't think he makes it into another season, because this roster's too talented for that. And look, we've seen this Falcons team struggle in Week 1 before, so I think we should all take this result with a little bit of a grain of salt, because it's Week 1 of the NFL. Week 1 of the NFL is one of the weirdest weeks in sports. You will see a lot of very strange outcomes for games. See a lot of things that are not going to be the case for the rest of the season. But as is tradition, we have to react as strongly as possible to the one football game we've seen. So, Adnan, when is Dan Quinn getting fired? And
all right, I give it up for week. I mean, I'm also trying not to overreact to Week 1. It's like you said, it's strange phenomena happens in Week 1. Remember in 2016 when we went to the Super Bowl? It was a panic after we lost to the Bucs at home.
Yeah.
And it turns out that the Bucs were actually pretty good that year. And guess what? The Minnesota Vikings are going to be pretty good this year.
Yep.
They're fighting for their own playoff aspirations. We said it before the game. Playing at US Bank Stadium was super difficult.
Oh, yeah.
That place was rocking. That place was loud. It was at 1 p.m. kickoff, everyone was in their seats, just a raucous atmosphere, which is something that never happens here in Atlanta, because everyone is just, nobody gets to the games here until the second quarter. But, it's the credit to the Vikings fans who made it as difficult as possible for the Falcons, and a raucous atmosphere plus that nasty defensive line is a scary thing to go against.
Yeah.
If you're the Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah, and we need we need to keep in mind too that like going on the road week 1 is always a tough game, no matter what team you are. Like it's never a great setup to have to go play on the road for your first NFL game. And I know people are talking about the preseason, like, oh, they needed to give their starters more snaps. Like, the Falcons gave their starters a pretty good number of snaps in the preseason compared to other teams. Like, some teams did not play their starters at all. So, like, pretending that the Falcons didn't play their starters in preseason and that's the reason for this game is not correct. It's just that offenses tend to struggle early in the season because offense is complicated. And it takes time to gel. And the Falcons, I think, made a mistake in continuing to shuffle their offensive line constantly all training camp. They should have picked someone after the second or third preseason game for those 2 vacant spots. I mean, obviously the Matt Gono injury shuffled things at right tackle, but at left guard, they needed to pick a long time ago, and they just didn't. Left guard wasn't a major problem spot in this game. I mean, Carpenter played fine, but that chemistry on the offensive line is important. And I just think they didn't really have a chance to develop any of it. So hopefully they'll be able to do it over the next couple weeks. But wow. Yeah, I mean, you guys are right. Like, Jake Matthews always struggles against Everson Griffin. He's like Matthews' kryptonite. So I'm not like concerned about Matthews' overall trajectory in 2019 or anything like that. And you shouldn't be either. Don't freak out over this game unless you really want to. Like, if you just want to have fun and complain. I mean, that's cool, but like, don't draw any like sweeping conclusions about the NFL from week 1 ever. That is a rookie mistake. Okay, I've been covering this team professionally for like 5 years now, and the biggest mistake is to ever like put any stock in what happens week 1. So, remember all, and Anna mentioned it. Like, remember all the hemming and hawing about that 2016 Bucks loss, and that team, ended up going to the Super Bowl. So week 1 doesn't really tell you anything about the long-term trajectory of your team. It tells you how good they are in week 1. So
yeah, the main problem for the Atlanta Falcons will be the fact that next week you get the Philadelphia Eagles at home. And if you lose that one, then you're 0-2, and then you have to be very careful because the season can get away from you if you start out 0-2, losing to 2 NFC opponents who are directly going to be competing with you in the standings. So, I mean, if they lose in a vacuum, losing to Philadelphia isn't something that's anything to be ashamed of. Philadelphia is a very good football team. But if you start out 0-2, then that week 3 game against the Colts becomes an absolute must-win.
Yeah, and we're just now getting that Chris Lindstrom is in a walking boot. So,
that's why you got Jamon Brown.
That's why you got Jamon Brown. But that's a huge injury for this team. So we'll see. I mean, we obviously don't know anything about the severity. Walking boot doesn't necessarily mean multi-week injury or anything like that. A lot of times walking boots are precautionary. But it's obviously not as good as not leaving in a walking boot. So
yeah, I'd much rather not leave in a walking boot.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's going to be something we're going to have to monitor. We know that Russell Gage is in the concussion protocol as well. So, overall, some dark news there. But, like Adnan said, with the Eagles in week 2, losing this game doesn't necessarily sink you, but it does mean that you basically are, like, backed up against the wall with the Eagles coming to Atlanta. Like, you need to look good in that game. You need to win that one, and then because you need to get a win here in the early part of the season.
Yeah, if you win in week 2, then it's like you can attribute this game to just being a bump in the road. So yeah. It's nothing like, the tone of this conversation will be a lot different next week if the Falcons win on Sunday Night Football in front of the national TV audience against one of the better teams in the NFL.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll obviously see if that's the case. We're hopeful. But like I didn't see anything today that made me think that the Falcons were like not going to be able to compete this year at all. Like, I know turnovers are bad, obviously, and they're not very much fun to watch, and they suck. But turnovers are one of the most random things in football. They're very difficult to predict. They're not something that generally carries over week to week. As much as people like to say, like, oh, Dan Quinn's always had issues with turnovers and all this. Not in 2016, he didn't. And they're very random. They're very hard to track. So when you lose a game because you turned it over 4 times and you didn't get any of the 3 fumbles you created, that I think is a little bit of something that leads me to believe that this week's performance was probably an aberration of some sort. Not giving anyone a pass for playing poorly, but I wouldn't panic based on this game. Like, we saw the defense, struggle against the run, but they didn't get blown off the field. And every time they had a full field to defend, they stopped the Vikings every single time. The Falcon, when they didn't have to get the ball after a turnover, I thought they were okay. They need to be a lot better down the stretch, but there's hope there, I think. And they don't even need to be great. They just need to be like a solid defense if this offense is as good as we think. And then the offense put up numbers. They just turned the ball over a crap ton of times. Like, you take away those turnovers, and they're probably in a competitive game. So, I don't know. Anna, what's your thoughts on the long-term outlook of this team after a disastrous Week 1 performance?
I think they'll be fine, but I'm just disappointed because, I felt like this was an opportunity with their wide receivers hobbled, with Diggs hobbled. Like, you had it in front of you. It wasn't anything complicated. If I'm here telling you, what you need to do is just like focus on that run game, focus on stuffing that run game. Like, I'm not an expert to the level of these defensive coordinators by any means, but it was like pretty obvious they couldn't do that. And the Vikings, starting a rookie center, they have one of the weakest offensive lines in the game, and they just manhandled you. But overall, to answer your question, I think they'll be fine. But I think that we'll see some people in the fan base start to panic if they start out 0-2. I won't necessarily panic if they start out 0-2 unless they just get blown out. So it's one of those things where I think we'll be fine long term. It's good for us that we don't have any division games until like late on in the season.
Exactly. You can like suck it up and go like 500 and then just nail all 6 of those division games and you'll be fine. So like that's how it is. Like, with the way the schedule's set up, you can like kind of fumble through this first half and then just play lights out against the division and you'll be good to go. So
yeah, and I mean, by then Caleb McGarry will be where he needs to be. Chris Lindstrom hopefully will come back from this injury very quickly and he'll be where he needs to be. The offense will be clicking because it is Dirk Cutter. I know he's been our OC before, but he is technically in his first year of like running this offense right now with this personnel. So yeah. It's very fortunate for us that we don't have the Saints next week in New Orleans or something like that.
They love to do that kind of stuff to us, but not this year. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, people want us to talk about Vic. Yeah, I mean, Vic pulling up on that sack attempt was just embarrassing. So I don't know what the hell he was doing.
Absolutely pathetic.
Yeah.
And also, there was that fumble which got called back, which wasn't a fumble in the end. But it was that fumble where Vic Beasley, all he has to do is fall on it, tries to pick it up and kicks it out of bounds. It was a live ball at that point.
Yeah.
And I was over here just like beside myself.
Oh,
They like reviewed it and they called it not a fumble, so not many people will remember that, but it's just boneheaded plays like that, which just infuriate me with Beasley.
Yeah, it's not great. We're getting word that Carolina did in fact complete the loss to the Rams, so they are also going to be 0-1 to start. I do want to give some love to a couple of players before we get out of here. One being Grady Jarrett, who was fantastic as always. Grady Jarrett like single-handedly kept this game from being like in the 30s in terms of points scored. So kudos to Jarrett. He played really well, and he's going to be a key to this defensive line improvement. The other one is Kenyon Barner, who I thought was like one of the most consistent players of the whole game for the Falcons. Like, consistently positive yardage on punt returns, looked really smart with his cuts, had great field vision. I mean, it seems like they made the right decision with Barner. So what are your thoughts on his performance in his first game?
Oh yeah, he was very good. Like, and I don't know if this was a case of Barner is just Pro Bowl caliber level, or we've just gotten so used to watching such subpar and awful kick return like games since Devin Hester like left the team. But I mean, Kenyon Barner just very satisfied with what he did. Didn't make any mistakes. Got some yardage, made some nice moves. Now we see now why they kept all of those running backs. And I mean, Marcus Green, like, you had a chance to like win that job. You didn't. He's on the Eagles practice squad now, but Kenyon Barner showing a steady veteran hand why he won that job.
Yep, and that was a good performance. So I do want to give credit where credit's due for him for playing well. I also thought Carpenter was solid too. James Carpenter at left guard. He was one of the offensive linemen I think that was victimized the least by the Vikings. So that kudos to him. And yeah, you mentioned Ito Smith, and I thought Ito Smith did look a little bit better than Freeman in this game, but with the offensive line playing so poorly, I mean, it might have just been a case of luck. Like they just got some better blocks for Smith out there, but Smith definitely looked good as a receiver on a couple catches as well.
Yeah, but it wasn't those blocks which made Devontae Freeman fumble it.
No,
and I mean that in my opinion killed off this game because it's 14-0. You're driving, you score there, even if it's a field goal. All right, you got some points on the board at that point. Like it's good, like you're good, but that's not what happened.
Yeah, and someone mentioned Justin Hardy too, and look, like, yeah, I mean, I agree with Justin Hardy. Like, I was wrong to doubt him. I thought he came in and played really well when Russell Gage went out. He was a solid option out there. So kudos to Hardy for playing hard, but yeah, it's tough. It's tough because if Freeman doesn't fumble there and they get that touchdown, or at least get some points, the game looks completely different because it's 14-7 or 14-3 or whatever it is. It's still very much a game that you can come back from. And instead they fumble and score, and the Vikings score on the drive.
And then on the Vikings, that score was aided by those third down penalties, which were just ridiculous. And I mean, just a penalty is bad enough. A third down penalty where they get the incompletion and it's an automatic first down is just a killer.
Yeah. So, disappointing performance, obviously. Not what we wanted to see. Pretty upset about it, but it's week 1. There's a lot of games to go. You would be wise to temper your your takes for this game, but I know you won't, so it's okay.
Yeah, I mean, don't overreact to week 1. It's only week 1 at the end of the day.
Yeah, and Hooper. Hooper was good too. He was arguably the best receiver. So good on Hooper for playing well. I think he's going to have a good year as well.
And Matt Ryan, week 1 just is not his week.
Yeah, week 1 is not his best.
In 2016 against the Bucks, he was very poor. Last year against the Eagles, he was absolutely awful.
Yeah.
In that Thursday night game, to the point where people were getting their bold takes in, saying, "Oh yeah, like Matt Ryan isn't a top 10 quarterback. Matt Ryan sucks." I mean, remember how bad that game was last year? He threw an interception and like he got to the goal line. And I remember writing an article about this. It pissed me off so much. Sark called 4 verts on the goal line 4 straight times. But the thing is, he had a little wrinkle on the 4th and goal one where Tevin Coleman was running a slant and he was wide open, but Matt Ryan was just locked into Julio Jones on all of those passes. And he was just forcing it into Julio. And look at what happened the rest of the season. Matt Ryan ended up with MVP-like numbers, 4,900 yards, 35 touchdowns, 7 picks. Matt Ryan will be fine. He's a veteran.
Yeah.
He's gone through this before.
Yeah, the first week, the offense seems to kind of sputter a bit. And well, part of it, I think, has, outside of that Bucks game, because the Bucks didn't have a good defense, but these last 2 games, the Falcons have played elite defenses week 1, and that's just a tough draw.
On the road.
Yeah, on the road, too. And it's a tough draw for your first game together in a regular season environment. You got to go into a super hostile environment. Maybe Kansas City and Seattle are the 2 more hostile environments than Minnesota's new stadium and Philly. But those are definitely up there. Yeah, those are definitely up there in terms of difficult places to start your season.
Yeah, like that place was loud.
Yeah.
It was just like, and when they start that like skull clap, it's just like, it's very intimidating.
Yeah, it's tough. It's a tough spot. So we need to see them play a lot better. Obviously, the hope is that they will next week. So I'm not, adjusting my expectations or anything like that. I've been getting tweets all game like, so when are we firing Quinn? Why are you defending Quinn and all this? It's like, because I'm not. Problem, yeah, what's my problem? Sorry, I'm not calling to clean house after one game.
You just like mediocrity. That's what it is.
Yeah, I'm just, I'm not satisfied with a trip to the Super Bowl and a playoff berth in 4 seasons. I guess.
Yeah, remember what Arthur Blank said? I want multiple Super Bowls.
Super Bowls. Yep. All right.
Multiple.
Multiple. Yes. All right. So, Adnan, any final takeaways from this game before we wrap it up here?
Just don't overreact to it. It's week 1. We've gone through it before. I know it sucks. I know we wanted it to be more competitive, and I mean, we'll be fine. And even if we lose week 2, and we'll get into all of the week 2 details moving forward.
Yeah.
I'm just tempering expectations because the Eagles, I know they started out pretty bad, but they are very good.
Yeah.
Like the Eagles they are super, and now they have Deshaun Jackson, who's just like lighting the Redskins up. I think the second game may be even tougher than this first game against Minnesota, but even if they stumble out of the gate, don't panic, but start to I give you permission to panic if they start out 0-3.
Yeah, if they start out 0-3, that's almost a death sentence. 0-4 is a death sentence. 0-3 is like 75% a death sentence. So.
Yeah, it was only the Chiefs in like 2015 or 16.
Yeah.
2016 where they started out like 0-4. They were 1-5, and then they like won their last 10 games to like make it. That was like Alex Smith. That was the last Alex Smith year, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and to everyone saying, this team is going to suck as long as we have Quinn, I will point you to the years 2016 and 2017, when the team did not, in fact, suck at all. In fact, they were really good. So if you think Dan Quinn can't put a good team on the field, I mean, did you just forget 2 good years to satisfy your narrative? I mean, I just, that's all I ask. That's all I ask. Like, if you hate Quinn so much, that's fine, but like, don't pretend like he's never coached a good team before, because it's happened multiple times, and he's never had a losing record in his time as Falcons head coach. So, also going to throw that out there for the haters. So,
last year.
Last year was 8-8, right? Oh, 7-9. Yeah. So last year that was his first year as a losing record out of 4 seasons, and it was barely that. It was a Saints special, right? It's 7-9. Yeah, but
God, I'm just saying. Had we not won that last game against the Bucks, we would have Ed Oliver right now.
Yes.
And the run defense would be a lot better with Ed Oliver on this team.
I mean,
but you didn't hear it from me.
Yeah, and Craig, you want to pin 2016 on Shanahan, like the guy that cost us the Super Bowl with his dumb play call? Like you're seriously making the argument that the coach that has not had a single winning season since leaving Atlanta, he was the reason that the Falcons were actually good when they were good.
I mean, like, Shanahan was a huge part of it, of course.
Oh, yeah.
We also have to look, since Dan Quinn started calling plays on defense after the bye week, the defense through the playoffs and into the Super Bowl gave up on average 18 points per game. And if you give up on average 18 points per game in today's NFL, you're going to win. You're going to win a lot of games. So
Yes.
Dan Quinn definitely played a massive role in 2016. It wasn't all Shanahan.
Yes, and keep in mind that the Falcons had success with Steve Sarkisian as their offensive coordinator, for God's sake. So, let's not pretend that this team can't function without Kyle Shanahan.
And for the record, Matt Ryan was, Anthony Wilson, you're right, Matt Ryan was kind of shaken behind this O-line.
Oh, yeah.
But Matt Ryan has definitely had some much worse O-lines, and he was much more shaken in 2013 when he had Lamar Holmes as his left tackle and he had Peter Kahns as his center than he was now. Like, compared to like 2013, this O-line is like the Washington Redskins Hogs from like the 90s, which was like the best offensive line of all time.
Yeah. So, I mean, look, Ryan definitely was under a lot of pressure in this game, but he's had worse. Okay, we'll just say that.
He's just made them look a lot better.
Yeah. But I mean, you guys can be as negative about the team as you want. I mean, that's your right. But at a certain point, you need to have some fun with the football season. So giving up after week 1, I think, is just not a great recipe for enjoying your time.
Yeah, give up after week 3.
Yeah, give up after week 3 and join us for draft takes on on the week 4 episode.
If we lose to Brissett up in Indy,
yeah,
we're firing up the mock draft.
Yeah, we're firing up the mock draft machine. TDN's got that going all season, so we'll have that content just ready, locked and loaded for that eventuality.
I mean, Tua's coming out this year. Trevor Lawrence next year.
Oh, man.
We have options.
We have options, man.
Yeah. Jake Fromm, go Dogs.
Got to cut that bum Matt Ryan. He's been staying around way too long.
We need more UGA Bulldogs on this team. We need to sign Aaron Murray right now and then tank for Fromm.
Yeah, so Super John Goldsmith, I mean, I'm sorry you're such a snowflake that you can't take me telling people that you shouldn't get upset about week one. If you call it insulting Falcons fans, I guess that's your prerogative. But like, we're having a discussion here. I mean, I don't think I'm insulting people. So I guess that's up to you if you want to take it personally. But this is a football discussion. I personally think that Quinn is a good coach. I don't think he's a great coach. I think he's serviceable. I think he's better than what you're probably going to get on the market. So that's my take. But
I think he's better than average.
Yeah.
And in terms of draft, like personnel, he's fantastic. But in-game stuff, it's some stuff to be desired. In-game stuff.
Oh yeah, and that's why they brought in that new guy, Sutton, who's supposed to be their game management guy. We didn't really see an opportunity for them to trade for Daniel Jones. Yes, the preseason Maverick.
Myth reindeer. I like that. Bomb for Fromm.
Yeah, that's going to be a good one. Yeah. So thanks for that content. We're going to use that for sure. But yeah, not really too much else to say about this game. It was a bad one. It was embarrassing. But we're going to have to get back up on the horse and keep playing because it's one game out of 16. So we got a lot more games to play. A lot of distance to go. Yeah.
It's a long season. And it just started. I mean, come on, just be happy football's back.
We shouldn't go into our dark place after a single loss. Okay, it was a pretty bad loss. We'll give you that. I mean, it's a pretty bad loss.
And I mean, one positive thing that would come out of this game, Matt Ryan moved into 13th all time in the passing yards list, passing Frank Tarkenton in Minnesota. So I mean, there's that.
Yeah.
So yeah. Good job, Matt Ryan. Probably shouldn't have thrown that ball on the goal line, but good job.
Probably, but
or that pass into double coverage to Julio on the second drive.
I'm totally in agreement that Matt Ryan made some pretty questionable decisions in this game. So we'll break it all down in a little more detail on Wednesday for our next show, guys. Go ahead.
And I just want to answer the question. They went for 2 because they pretty much knew that they weren't really going to make it all the way back. There wasn't enough time left, so they were just working on their offense at that point, trying to get something positive. So they went for it for 2 after that Ridley touchdown.
Yeah, and I think they wanted to practice that situation. I mean, that's a situation that you don't get a lot of live game time to practice. So I think that they were just going to try to go for 2 whenever they could and just see if they could get it, see if they could get the points. But yeah, I mean, it's week 1. It's bad, but you have to put together. You have to get back together. You have to get back on the horse and then try to win your next game because if you win next week, then it's.
Oh, if you win next week,
then it's 1-1.
I would take 1-1 out of these 2 games all day long.
Oh yeah, I mean it was a tough matchup. Let's not act like we lost to the freaking Dolphins or something who got just literally run over repeatedly by Lamar Jackson.
Let's not act like we lost by 30 to the Titans at home after being hyped up as Super Bowl contenders all offseason after trading for Odell Beckham.
Yeah.
That's what the Browns did today.
Yeah, the Browns were just god awful. They got trounced by the Titans, so that was a fun one. I auto drafted Derrick Henry by mistake in one league, and I don't feel so bad about that now. He just dominated that Browns front today. So
yeah, in our Falcoholic league, I took Lamar Jackson as my backup.
Yeah.
So that was
heck yes, buddy. Yeah, Lamar Jackson is very good, very very good at football. At least we're not the Browns. That's always what we can fall back on for now. So we have to make sure we get that Super Bowl win before Cleveland because then we have nothing to fall back on. But guys, otherwise we do appreciate you tuning in for this post-game special. Thank you guys for the comments. I honestly do respect all of you. I hope that you guys don't find my comments insulting to you. That's not my intention. I just like to have a lively discussion, and Aldon and I do respect you guys. We don't want you to think that we're putting you down. We just are trying to inject a little bit of reason into a very unreasonable discussion because football is an emotional sport, and we have strong takes about it, and I expect that from folks. So let's have a good time. And, we'll have a good time together and not overreact too much. But before we get out of here, do want to thank my co-host, Mr. Adnan Ikic, at Say Which Way on Twitter. Adnan, anything you're working on you'd like to plug?
Fantasy Stud and Dud is coming back, and that'll go, I think, sometime tomorrow. So check that out. Yeah, absolutely. Check that out, guys, for sure. If you don't mind, before you tune out, folks, do give the show a like and subscribe to the Falcoholic Live, the Falcoholics channel on YouTube. That does help us.
in some weird analytics-driven way that I haven't quite deciphered, but it does help. So if you guys don't mind doing that, we do appreciate you. And then I'm Kevin Knight, of course, at Falcoholic Kevin on Twitter. Appreciate those of you that helped me get to 2,000 followers just before the game. Helped me nail my goal. So thank you, folks. And like I said, we will be back Wednesday night to do another show. We will recap this game in a little bit more detail after I've had time to watch it again and digest it. It's going to be really painful, but I do it all for you. And then Sunday we will have another pregame because it is a primetime game and a post-game special. We will be doing post-game specials for just about every game. So thank you guys for tuning in. We appreciate you. And enjoy the rest of football Sunday, or try to if you can. Hopefully we'll watch a Saints loss here shortly. So until next time.
If the Saints and Bucks lose, then I mean it's basically
it's all a wash. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thank you for tuning in. We appreciate you. We will see you on Wednesday, 8:10 p.m. Eastern Time. Thanks for tuning in. And enjoy the rest of your first football Sunday of the year. I know that I will attempt to as well. So see you guys.